Not. What's up? Um. I. I mean, I don't think I've been quiet. Why do you think that? Hey, just because we've been sitting in a room for 30 minutes together and I haven't said a word does not mean that I'm being quiet. It doesn't mean. Well, I mean, okay, maybe it does mean I'm being a little quiet, but we could sit in silence. That's not bad. I don't know. I don't normally just I don't normally just talk. I don't know. I normally just respond to stuff. Um, you want me to just talk? I don't know if you want that. I mean, once the floodgates have been unraveled, I don't think there's any going back. Are you sure you want to do this? Because I don't know if you'll be able to come back from it. Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now, let's see here. You just want me to talk about random topics, random things. Well, I could start off with, you know, that game that you interrupted me on? When you were trying to get my attention, so you tried making me lose. Yeah, that's right. League of Legends? That game? You know, there's a lot about that game. You know, I could even teach you about that game a little bit if you wanted to hear about it. Okay, strap in. It's time to tell you all about League of Legends. So, League of Legends is a MOBA. A MOBA stands for. What does a MOBA stand for? I think it's multi-online battle arena, massive online battle arena. So basically, you have 5 people on your team and you have 5 people on the enemy team. There's 3 lanes, and then there's like this thing called the jungle in between the lanes. Typically, how it goes is one person goes in the top lane. That's typically your tank or your skirmisher, or you know, sometimes you have some off meta stuff like enchanters, but most people don't seem to enjoy those. At least don't seem to enjoy going up against those. And then in the mid lane, that's typically where you would have your mages, your casters. So there are some like assassins that go there, like 80 assassins. So mages are okay. So there would be one person in the mid lane, just like how there's one person in the top lane, but there would actually be 2 people in the bottom lane. That would typically be your attack damage carry, which is typically like the long range people with guns. Sometimes they have crossbows, maybe arrows. Once in a while, they'll shoot like mystic gauntlet beams. And then they would be paired with a support, which could, you know, be an enchanter support, which is typically used to heal. There are tank supports, which are used to either peel off the other people from attacking the one, or just to soak up all the damage. And then there are damage supports. Those kinds of supports are there in case you feel as though the carry is not adequate or good enough to carry, so the support does it instead. Of course, then there's the jungle, which is the little places in between the lanes. The jungler typically is who goes around and helps out the other lanes that are in need. There are these little camps that you can kill, like birdies or doggies or lizards, and they give you money. Some of them give you buffs, and they go around helping out lanes or taking objectives. Talking about objectives, there are 2 major objectives. Both are on the one is the top side of the jungle and one is the bottom side of the jungle, smack dab in the middle. of the map. So it's like the middle of the top and the middle of the bottom. There's like a river, and there's like a little pit to the side of the river. And there will either be a dragon if you're on the bottom side of the jungle, or there will be a crab or a giant tentacle monster. The giant tentacle monster is almost impossible to fight on your own unless you are very, very much OP. The dragon is possible to do alone as long as you know what you're doing. And the little crab man, he's very easy to do alone, even if you're not the jungler. Typically, you'd have the team help out when it comes to objectives. But those are just the lanes of the game. And then the lanes of the game kind of... So that's like your basis. Typically when you play the game, unless you are a support, you want to kind of... So there's these little dudes that come to lane, and they either like smack, or they smack with like a little sword. Sometimes they're in like a cannon, and other ones are like little casters. So those little dudes duke it out with the other little dudes because they spawn from your base. And so once the little dudes reach each other, they start going into their own little war. And your job as your friendly neighborhood peacekeeper is, as soon as it looks like those little dudes are going to die, you, of course, keeping the peace in the world, are supposed to kill them at the last second. So they'll have like they'll slowly lose health to the other little dudes they're having a war with. And once they get to like a sliver of health, that's when you want to, like, if you're ranged, you'll shoot them. If you're a mage, sometimes you'll use a spell on them. If you're at top, you just kind of go into melee range and smack them. And if you manage to get the killing blow, basically, you'll be able to get money. And money is very good because that means that you can buy items. And items are basically the crux of your damage. Items build from little items, which build into bigger items, which build into strong items. So let's say you killed 500, you killed 10 little dudes. So each of the little dudes sometimes give you 17 or 30 gold. So let's say you got 300 gold. So for 300 gold, you can buy a little dagger. Then let's say the next time you come back, you have 1,000 gold. So that 300 gold you invested into the dagger, you can then take that dagger and subtract that gold from an item that the dagger would build into. So, for example, if you need a dagger and a sword to make a book, then let's say the book costs 1,000 dollaroonies, maroons, doubloons. And in order to buy this book, you basically need to buy a dagger and a sword, and that makes a book, because knowledge. So the book costs $1,000. So you buy the dagger. The book now costs $700. Now let's say the sword is the same price, so it's another $300. So if you buy the dagger and you buy the sword, then the book is now $400, despite it being $1,000 before. It's because it takes into consideration the items that you already have in your inventory that you already paid for. So it's not like you have to come back with 1,000 gold in order to buy this book, and if you buy the components of the book, that doesn't like do anything towards working towards the item that you want. And these items can be very strong. I mean, think about how strong books are. You can throw them at people. You can read them. Those books give you special stats and powers, and there's a bunch of different stats in the game. Most of the time, you want not just the stats, but almost all the big items have like some kind of effect to them, like your attacks burn the enemies, or if you click on it, it makes it go faster, or stuff like that. Um, but each of them have stats, and the game even has lingo for some of those stats, such as AD and AP. It's very simple as to what those are, and that kind of defines what kind of character you're playing as. If you're playing someone that's AD, that's attack damage, so you're going to be building like swords and daggers on them. Then you got AP. That stands for ability power, which is basically fancy talk for magic. So there, if you're like a mage or if you're a caster, typically what you're gonna buy are like books or like wands and stuff like that that give you stronger magic power. And then of course there are exceptions such as tanks and supports. Tanks, typically, I mean, if you've played any kind of game, you probably know what like a tank is. A tank is basically like, you know, a strong dude with a lot of health that doesn't take that much damage, but they're not supposed to deal that much damage. Sometimes that's not the case, but they all basically build armor. Armor helps against attack damage. Magic resist helps against magic, and then, you know, health just gives them more health. And then supports can sometimes build items that would like buff up their like supporty spells. And, you know, stuff like healing, shielding, stuff like that. Of course, if you're a damage support, then you'd build whatever kind of damage you are, whether that be AP or AD, which is like attack damage or ability power. And then if you're a tank support, same thing applies for if you're playing like a tank. Then you would build like health, armor. There's still types of support items that can help with that, where it's less focused around you and focused around your team. There are a few tank items where they have beneficial effects to your allies when you do stuff versus beneficial effects to yourself, which is typically what a top lane tank would get versus a support tank. Like, for example, there's a item where as soon as you stun someone, which is called CC. It is the worst thing known to the game. I absolutely hate it when I'm not able to move. I despise it. I wish they never added CC to the game, but I understand why it's there. Then it makes it so everyone else does extra damage to them. And then there's also, in the top lane, some tank items would be, if you stand near someone for about 3 seconds, a little ball will appear next to them. That is the plink ball. Basically, if you smack them, then you do a very powerful plink, and then basically you get permanent health, and you do like a little bit of a burst of damage to them. That is called the plink. It's basically, it stacks indefinitely, and every time you hit someone, of course it has a cooldown of like maybe 30 seconds. You get permanent health. So if you manage to get this item at like 5 minutes in the game, and the game somehow lasts until like an hour, you can easily have like 10,000 health by the end of it, when most characters by that time, the characters are called champions in this game, they would have probably like 2,000 health max. And you're over there with 10,000 health. So you're basically a big beefy boy, and or a big beefy girl. Or I don't know if do they have any non-binary characters in League? I don't know. Maybe the void creatures. This game has a ton of lore, by the way, so if you're a lore nut, they have multiple different games that actually go off of this. One of the biggest things that came off of League was actually Arcane, which basically told the story of Piltover and Zon, focusing around Jinx, Caitlyn, Vi, a little bit of Echo, but it was basically kind of like Jinx and Vi, who were the main people. Jinx, Vi, and Caitlyn. They basically told the story of basically how bad everything was below a city, where the city had everything good, everything was shiny, everything was going well. But then, of course, you had stuff like corrupt cops, you'd have the corrupt underground as well. So, like, each side had their own bad guys, and each side had their own good guys. There are some people who are in the top half who just want to make things better. And the same goes for the bottom half. And then there are some people who are just, want either a status boost, they want money, they want, power. And it's a very good animation. I believe it was Netflix's top animated series, like, ever on Netflix. And I mean, they're planning on making an Arcane too. I feel like most people, I feel like even people that haven't seen League have seen Arcane. And I think, Arcane brought a lot of people over to League. And then they realized, wow, this game, I don't like it. Because the thing about League is it's not the most friendly to new players. It's kind of a little bit rough, a little bit painful, especially if you don't know what you're doing, because most of the time you're going to be playing with people who do know what they're doing, that made a new account because they are trying to reset their rank, or they're mad that they keep losing their own games, or they just want to troll, or they got banned. There's a lot of reasons why people may make a Smurf. Some people are just insane. That one would be me. And so most of the time you're not playing with other new players, which would make it so if the person is a Smurf and you're doing bad because you just don't know what you're doing and you're new to the game, they're probably going to think you're also a Smurf and you're just trolling them. And then that's when the toxicity happens. The game has a horrible toxicity problem. That's why most of the time, if you're going to play the game, don't play it by yourself. Play it with a group of friends. Have fun. You don't even have to win to have fun. You can just play the game, try out new things, do different things. Just make the game fun. As soon as you start taking the game too seriously, playing ranked, or you start getting more upset. Especially if you start going on loss streaks, especially if you're doing ranked, it'll get to your head. You'll start doubting yourself. You'll start doubting your best champions because you have a few bad games. People are putting you down. Then you start wanting to put people down because you're already in a bad mood and they just screwed you over. So then it's just kind of a cycle that just feeds into each other, where it's and most of the time, if you see someone positive in League or someone's being positive in League, they will get shut down so quickly. If people say in the beginning of the game, I hope you have fun, you guarantee 3 people on the opposite team are going to be like, I'm going to camp you, I'm going to kill you, I hate you, stop talking, you shouldn't exist. It's that bad. Positivity most of the time is not smiled upon in the League. But then there, of course, are those rare times where it can shine through, and then you can just have a game that's full of just a bunch of memers or just people just trying to have a good time, instead of the doctor or the teacher who have been dealing with horrible patients or horrible students the entire time, and they are just playing the game in their little bit of free time they have, and they're already in a horrible mood and they're torturing themselves with League. So that's just put them into a deeper bad mood, and then now they have to deal with people that are trying to have fun, and they're wasting their time keeping them in a game that they know that they're going to lose when they just want to be able to play the next game. Of course, I would be one of the people trapping them inside, because I am the type of person to never surrender, because the only thing I care about in that game is not if I win or if I lose. I wish to murder. I just want to kill. I just want to kill everything in front of me. I do not wish to be stopped by CC, which is why the favorite type of people that I like to play are either people that 1v1 very, very well, such as a fencer. I haven't played her in a while though. Or assassins that feel really good when you play them well, and it makes people go like, wow, your character's OP, I can't believe you, why are you playing that OP trash, I didn't even have a chance to live. When you play those assassin characters perfectly, oh, it's so satisfying. Very, especially the ones that just zip around. I would say probably my best champion is a Kali. She's like this ninja. She literally is a ninja. There's 4 or 5 ninja characters. And she's an assassin. I bring her in the top lane. I hate going into the mid lane with her because typically if you're a melee mid laner, most of the time mid laners are ranged casters, meaning you are going to get poked. Poking, basically, imagine someone has a stick and it's a little too sharp. And so they keep like prodding you with it. Like it hurts. It's not going to make you bleed. It's really annoying, very frustrating. It is going to aggravate you and it's going to make you want to attack them. But because of their stick is like mega long, like it's like a branch that came off of a tree that's like 5, 6, 7 feet, 6 meters, and they're just constantly poking you. Don't feel good. Very annoying. I want to Mordor, and you're making me want to Mordor you more than anything. Of course, some people have ways to combat that, like at least the melees that go into the mid lane, such as having a small burst of range or having a dash. Most assassins have some form of dash in order to get to their target that they are trying to burst. Assassins are typically burst. There's a bunch of different kinds of mages. Some of them are long range mages. I believe they're called artillery, where they basically they have absolutely no mobility, but they shoot things from really far away. There is the assassin mage who are bursty. And then there's the short range mages who typically also do not have, much mobility, but they have strong damage or utility once they are in the range that they are meant to be. Most of the time that utility would be CC. And then there's another kind of mage that I don't even... there's like a ton of different mages. You can classify them as a ton of things. But yeah. And then, so with assassins, they typically have a way to either jump on someone, or it's mostly just jumping on them. For example, the ninja lady that I play, she has 2 different ways to get to someone. She can throw a shuriken, which if that shuriken ends up landing on someone, she, for the next 3 seconds, can recast that ability, and no matter where that person is, she will go there. If they somehow made it back to base, if they teleported and they are just half across the map, if you press that button again, you are going to them. You will go across the entire map. You will go through walls. You will find a way. You will hunt them down. You are attached to them. The other way to get to people for the ninja lady, whose name is Akali, is her ultimate is a dash. If you click on that person, you will dash through them. This will do a tiny bit of damage. What is really nice about that is the second cast of that ability is a second faster dash, which, unlike the first dash, does a lot of damage. It's an execute, meaning the lower health they have, the more damage it does. So you basically want to dash through them, so here's the combo. Let me explain all our abilities. I'll tell you the combo and you tell me if this is confusing or not. Just nod or shake your head, okay? So this means we're gonna have to start off talking about just abilities when it comes to champions in general. So every champion has 4 abilities, 1 passive, and you can bring 2 summoner spells. Summoner spells is something that everyone has access to. It's like a little minor thing, such as a speed boost, a teleport, a blink, a heal, a little bit of a burn. They're pretty important, but they're not what defines a champion. What defines a champion is their basic, what they look like, their design, and their abilities and how they play. So every champion has a passive. A passive is something that happens continuously. You don't have to press it most of the time. And it's just, think of it as like kind of like an aura or something that happens after you do something, just like instinctually. For example, a college passive is once a collie uses an ability, a ring around that person will open up around you. You have to walk out of that ring, which then makes your next auto attack empowered, and you gain movement speed when walking towards an enemy. So basically, this means that you're weaving in auto attacks and abilities, as well as going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth whenever you're fighting someone, because you need to get out of that ring, then go back into the ring, and that's how it goes. So her first ability, which would typically be on your Q button, is she throws kunai, which are like these little dagger thingies. It's in like a cone shape. It does a little bit of damage. The main reason for people to have this ability is so basically she can use her passive frequently. So almost all champions have a resource bar. Ninjas almost exclusively have energy, which is basically, it regens very, very fast, but you don't have much of it. So for example, Akali's Q at level 1, because every time you level up in the game, you can level up one of your abilities, costs, I believe, 140 energy, and you only have 200 energy. But once you rank it up to, it's fully ranked, then it's only 80 energy, meaning that you can probably do it 3 times within a fight without running out of energy, because you regen a lot of energy while fighting. And her passive gives her energy back when she hits someone, and you can have little bonuses such as like mastering runes, which you don't really have to worry about, where you can have a lot of regen, so you can probably use it between 3 to 4 times in a fight. It has an extremely short cooldown of an ability, between 1 and 2 seconds. It's basically kind of used to spam. It's not used for its damage. It's more used for its application of the passive. So yeah, other champions have things such as rage, where the more that you attack, the more rage that you get. Mana is your most typical form of resource. It has a pretty slow regen rate, but you have a lot more mana than, a person would have energy. And with energy, you will have 200 for the entire game, rather than you can buy mana items to give you more mana. So if someone has mana problems, you just buy a book that gives you mana, and then you no longer have to worry about casting your abilities and running out of that resource. Akali's second ability is she does a little smoke cloud on the ground. That smoke ground, as soon as you cast it, gives you energy. And the cool thing about this is she goes invisible in that cloud, meaning the people can't hit you, which is very nice. They can still try to use abilities that don't target you and try to guess where you are, but if they are an auto attack based person, they can no longer touch you. But as soon as you do an attack or use an ability, you'll be shown for a little bit before going back into invincibility, giving that person a chance to attack you. So typically what you want to do in this form is to move to a position where they do not expect you to be in. Like, for example, when you move, most of the time you're moving in a line, so people can see where you're starting to move, like, before you go invisible. So what I typically do is I'll walk in one direction as I'm casting the ability, and then as soon as I am invisible, I will go the exact opposite direction, even if it means going the long way around to attack, because they will not expect me to be coming from behind them. They'll expect me to be coming from where I, used where I was walking from the ability. Yeah, sure. That's the main thing. Most of the time, you use this for being able to weave in and out, taking a lot less damage. Sometimes you do it to wait out cooldowns. Sometimes you do it to think about your positioning, because most of the time, if you're in that shroud, they can't hurt you. So you have time to think about when the perfect time to strike is, which is one of my favorite parts about it. Then the third ability is the one that I talked about. It's the one where you throw a shuriken and you can reattach to it. So this can apply your passive twice, and it is very cheap, though the cooldown is much longer. This only costs like 30 energy compared to the 140 of the dagger. But this is a lot harder to hit, because if you hit a minion, those little dudes that fight each other, then you hit a minion. You did not hit the champion. The enemy. You hit something tiny. And since it's only one projectile compared to the cone, where it hits everything within the cone, for the Q ability, then and it's basically a lot harder to hit. But you can E someone as a Kali, and then you insta proc your passive, because when you E, it pushes you backwards on the first cast. So if you're hitting them and you E them, you'll instantly have your passive. Then when you recast it, you can then get another proc of your passive, and do a burst of damage. Most of the time when people play Kali, they just double cast E immediately, when they could be getting 2 procs of their passive, and their passive is most of the time, the damage on a Kali. The same thing goes for a Kali's ultimate. Every champion has an ultimate. That's their final ability. They unlock it at level 6. It is basically kind of what defines their kit most of the times. A Kali's is the 2 dashes. It is execute. It's very strong. The first dash, you dash through the target. This will almost instantly proc your passive. So once you do that, you basically want to instantly hit them. So basically, now that you know all the abilities, I can tell you the combo. You press the R button, you immediately hit them, and you press the W button. So within a split second, you are now on the opposite side of them. You have chunked them for a decent bit of damage because of your passive, and now you are invisible, and you have a little bit of time to think. Now what you want to do is you want to get a close E on them. So basically then you'll double hit E. Okay, so you double hit E, you auto them, you Q them, and you R them all within the next second. And that typically, most of the time, unless they're a tank, and you'll be able to judge whether or not this will kill them before you do it, but basically you want to kill them before they have the time to react to you, because they won't expect the burst damage, especially when it's the first time you're doing it to them. So basically, once you can, if you think they're not going to die on the first thing, dance around in your invisibility a bit and make them a little lower. But basically, you're just going to double E, auto Q, R, and then they're probably dead. The best way to chunk them while you're in your invisibility thing would be your Q, of course, where you Q them, you walk into the invisibility, you smack them again, you Q them, and then once you have the final burst, you basically want to do a combination of auto Q, R, all at the same time, because they're very, very quick animations. So that's basically the combos, at least for my champion. Every champion has different combos, different ways that they play. ADCs are like the opposite of assassins, where, well, I mean, some ADCs just do a ton of damage, but assassins kind of go into the action, whereas an ADC is supposed to kind of lay back and be protected and be cradled and be babied. Unless you are like a Draven, who is just constantly running down people. But yeah, there's a play style for everyone. If you are going to play the game, I would suggest doing it with friends, not doing it alone, unless you want to be sad. But if you end up doing that, then maybe I can comfort you from being sad. Of course, there's a lot of nuances to League and stuff like that. Obviously, I didn't explain every little part of League. There's micro and macro stuff to learn, such as when should you go to other lanes, when do you roam to objectives, when should you kill someone, when should you push a wave, when should you go for the tower. The towers are basically things that like protect the base, and you got to get through 3 to 4 different towers before you can end the game. And then it's just, there's a lot of stuff to League. It's been League's been out for a very long time. League's pretty old at this point, and it still has I think one of the biggest fan bases and player bases. So I mean, it's still going strong. It's one of my comfort games. I almost always go back to it. Whenever I show off games to people, most of the time it's games that are popular that I'm playing for them for their amusement. Very painful games. Most of the time they're like horror games, but when it comes to playing games on my own and by myself, most of the time it's just League. Sometimes I go to Hearthstone, but most of the time my comfort game is League, and unless I'm invited to other games to play with friends, then League's pretty much what I resort to. And I enjoy League. I think it's fun. I do enjoy Mordor, and I do have years and years of experience up my alley, up my book. I have knowledge. So a lot of the, I get a lot of the things because I've been playing the game for so long, versus like a new player who would be overwhelmed by the amount of stuff there is, and sometimes the toxicity of the people that are playing the game, despite it just being a game. But I know League isn't the only thing with that problem. There's other games like Dead by Daylight and Overwatch and stuff like that who are known for having toxicity. Either way, I personally like the game, and yeah. Is there anything else you want me to rant about? I could rant about taxes. Do you want me to talk about taxes? I could talk about taxes. Do you want to taxes? Yeah. So basically, there's a bunch of different kinds of taxes, and so like it depends on kind of like if you're going to be doing taxes as like a content creator, or if you're going to be doing taxes based off of like a job that you already do. I can give you the info on like, well, I mean, I've technically had both before. You know how I worked at the maid cafe before. I got like, not just, it's not just like independent business stuff. Like for example, the flower shop. That one's an independent business, so I would kind of have to report the profits that I made. But the good thing about that is you basically only have to report on the profits that you made, meaning if you made any kind of business expenses, meaning any of the profits that you got from, making sales, you then put into the shop, such as buying a bunch of different maybe flower seeds or fertilizer or other things that kind of assist, where you pay for it and you assist in it. It also includes like workspace and other things. There's a bunch of different expenses that kind of lower your taxes, because these are things that you have to pay for, you buy for, and it's things that directly influence your business and stuff like that. So what could have ended up being a ton of money to spend, if you dump a lot of that money right back into the business, it means that you have to give less money to the government, which is very nice. And, it's a silver lining. And, there's ways to kind of get around to use this system to your advantage, which is why a lot of people end up buying houses for their business owners or stuff like that. Because then they can classify that as a business expense, so that they end up giving less to the government and end up, while there would be technically less profit, because it's you're not seeing it in cash, but you're buying it in things that help your business, such as, well, I think the major one would be like buying a house. But the things that I would do would be like things to do with the potions, things to do with the flowers, stuff like that. But it also includes any kind of technology, such as if you're buying a computer, or if you need a desk, or if you need to, doing stuff for research. There's desk space, there's room space, there's other things like that. Anything that directly impacts your business, you can mark down as a business expense, which is very nice. When it comes to working at basically, like if you're a waiter or if you're a manager or if you're stuff like that, then it's a completely different kind of form. Most of the time, you end up getting money back from the government rather than having to give money to the government, which can be very painful, or which can be very nice. It's one of the things when you first go to a job where you'll fill out what kind of tax you want to do, where you can try and make it so it's basically like you can either do it so you can get more from the government when the tax day comes, or you can choose to get the most money up front and then end up getting paid a lot less when it comes to your tax returns. So it's basically the either you get more now or you get more later, and you can kind of choose which one that you want to do. Most of the time, businesses that you work for will end up doing all of the math and work yourself. They'll just give you a form, you fill it out, and then, it's sometimes they even just like, it's already baked into the check that you get. So most of the time, you don't even have to do anything. It's just when it comes to getting your tax returns, that's when you do it. And most of the time, you get money back, unless you're someone who has really weird, unless you're someone that, has a weird job, such as like being a business owner, or, maybe you're a content creator, stuff like that. And then that's where you, instead of getting a W-2 form, you'll get like a MISC form, or you'll get other kind of forms. They would be like 1098 forms. There's 1098 MISC, and there's 1098 something else. And basically, those are based off of, for example, if you have like sponsorships or kind of revenue coming from you from other places, you'll have to document them yourself. And because those people don't take the taxes out of the money that you get, you're just getting the flat amount of money that you've earned. You then have to kind of mark down every time that you've earned money from them. So it's a lot more complicated than just the typical, it's already done for you, here, you get some money back. This one is you have to pay money back, and it can get very overwhelming having to calculate all of the money you've spent and all of the money you've earned. But at the end of the day, it works out. As long as you mark down all of the business expenses and are very thorough, you can end up saving yourself a lot of money instead of just giving, the government money that you don't have. Especially if most of the time you end up putting money into like your business or your content creation or stuff like that. Very important. Are you falling asleep? I'm giving you knowledge, very important knowledge, and you're dozing off on me. How could you? I wonder if there's anything else I could rant about while I still have you here. The flower shop, it's going really well. I really enjoy the flower shop. There's a wide range of different people coming there. I'm pretty sure there's been people kind of watching me though. I think have I ever told you about Chompers? Chompers absolutely adorable. I really appreciate Chompers. I might even get some new shop members in soon. That would be pretty cool, don't you think? There's 2 contenders that I was thinking about hiring to my shop. I've kind of talked about them with you for a little bit, but I haven't made anything finalized yet. Maybe in the future. And then there's these other things that I'm working. I kind of want to write books and stuff. That'd be really cool. That I don't really have the time for all that stuff, but it would be cool, man. And then there's other stuff that there's like, have you been enjoying the kitten? Have you been taking care of the kitten? I like them. I like them. They're very cute. They're very nice. And then there's the other thing. And then there's there's the thing about the other